All right, this one you got to hear. A Bigfoot sighting in rural Connecticut on July 5th is now deemed credible by a research organization. Someone said that they saw him, but neighbors say they're not so sure. The sighting happened on the morning of July 5th near the state's largest forest. The Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization is dedicated to documenting credible encounters with the creature. So they say the eyewitness account was so descriptive, the researchers gave it their highest level of credibility. Resident Richard Fedor has lived in Fultontown, Connecticut for 30 years.
Every once in a while, if it's really quiet and still, you'll hear like a branch pop in the distance. It makes you wonder, oh, what's walking around back there?
And he said the woods where Bigfoot was spotted has 26,000 acres and is a mix of thick, dense trees. It has several water sources as well. And he says if Bigfoot is in Connecticut, this just might be the most likely location.
In 1991, 12-year-old Jared Negrete, a California boy, vanished while on a Boy Scout camping trip in the San Bernardino National Forest. The incident occurred on the slopes of San Gorgonio Mountain during that summer. It was Jared's first overnight trek toward the summit, and he struggled to keep pace with the more experienced scouts. The troop decided to push ahead at a faster speed, leaving him behind. Eventually, he became separated from the group. Other hikers on the trail later reported seeing him cutting across switchback sections, and that was the last confirmed sighting of him. When the troop descended, Jared was nowhere to be found. Authorities launched an extensive search and rescue mission, deploying helicopters, tracking dogs, thermal imaging equipment, and hundreds of volunteers. Reports indicate that nearly every branch of the military participated. Units of U.S. Marines even halted their training exercises to assist in the search within the forest. Classified sensor technology was also employed. Over the course of 3 weeks, teams scoured the area around the 11,500-foot peak of Mount San Gorgonio. At roughly 10,000 feet, they discovered shoe prints consistent with Jared's footwear, along with his backpack, beef jerky, candy wrappers, and a camera. However, Jared himself was never located. No trace of his body has ever been found, and no solid evidence of an animal attack, abduction, or accidental fall has come to light. 12 photographs were developed from Jared's camera. Most showed the surrounding landscape, but the final image was a close-up of his face, only his eyes and nose visible. Many believe that in that last shot, Jared was attempting to capture whatever might have been lurking behind him in the dark. Given the photo's angle and the use of flash, speculation has arisen that the white glow near his head is actually the reflection of an eye, belonging to someone or something standing just behind him in the forest shadows. Some observers go further, claiming that the image not only shows an eye reflection, but also reveals the entire right side of a Sasquatch's face, including part of the nose and mouth. Indeed, to some, the outline does resemble an ape-like visage positioned directly behind the boy. Despite an immense search effort involving military resources and advanced classified technology, Jared Negrete's fate and his current whereabouts remain an unsolved mystery. No additional signs of him or his remains have ever surfaced. This has led some to suggest that the theory of national parks and forests serving as the domain of something unknown to the general public may not be as far-fetched as it sounds. We will continue exploring other missing persons cases in future episodes of Bigfoot Territory. What are your thoughts on disappearances in national parks? Do you believe the government is withholding information? And what's your take on the missing 411 phenomenon? Share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this episode. In 2022, a hunter named Brian captured an intriguing photograph while in Oregon's Fremont-Winema National Forest. The image depicted a black-tailed deer cautiously surveying its environment. Suddenly, a large, dark form emerged from the nearby foliage, distinct from the deer. This incident calls to mind a previous event that occurred on December 5th, 1998. The Inbritson family, residents of Bonanza, Oregon, were preparing for the Christmas season. Each year they would venture into the densely forested Fremont-Winema National Forest in search of a suitable Christmas tree. This forest, characterized by its abundance of tall fir and pine trees, was renowned for providing ideal specimens for holiday decoration. Around 2 p.m., 80-year-old Derek set out with his father, Robert, and grandfather, Bob, to cut down trees. Bundled up against the cold, Derek carried a small hatchet with him. He was a third grader with a deep love for the wilderness, earning him the nickname Bear Boy. Derek loved watching wildlife shows at night, curled up in his bed. The family had permission to cut 3 trees, one of which they planned to gift to a disabled neighbor. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Derek, full of energy, ran ahead of his grandfather. Bob later explained that Derek loved to roam and explore. Soon, Derek asked if he could run even further ahead, toward a line of tracks in the snow. Thinking the tracks were left by Robert, Bob agreed, assuming it was safe, since they seemed to belong to someone familiar. However, the footprints were unusually large, much bigger than a normal person's. Bob figured Robert might have been wearing new snow boots, so he dismissed the thought. Not long after, Robert and Bob met up again, but realized something was off. They didn't have Derek with them. Each thought the boy was with the other. They quickly realized that Derek had vanished. Panicked, they shouted his name, but the only responses were the rustling of trees and the distant cries of deer. That's when Bob had a chilling realization. Robert had come from behind him, which meant the large footprints Derek had followed didn't belong to Robert. Without a second thought, they rushed off in the direction of the footprints. As they tried to push deeper into the forest to find Derek, a sudden blizzard rolled in, making it almost impossible to see. Thinking fast, Robert ran down the mountain and managed to flag down a passing car. He begged the driver to call the police. After making the call, Robert headed straight back to the scene, determined to keep searching with his father. On a small side path, they noticed something unusual. A snow angel. You know, the kind kids make when they lie in the snow and wave their arms and legs. At first, they thought Derek might have made it. But then again, animals like squirrels or rabbits can leave marks like that too. By now, it was about 6 p.m., and the sky was getting dark. Worry turned into fear as the family realized how serious this was. A few hours later, the police showed up, along with hundreds of volunteers. They formed a line and began searching every inch of the snow-covered terrain. Robert refused to give up hope. "Derek's tough," he said. "He grew up in these mountains. He knows them like the back of his hand. Maybe he's hurt or stuck somewhere." But the temperature had already dropped below freezing. Even if Derek was alive, he wouldn't last long in those conditions. The search expanded. Volunteers on foot, police helicopters circling above, and even search dogs were brought in. But the relentless snowfall slowed everything down. Then, on the 3rd day, there was a break. A volunteer reported finding footprints on a snow-covered rock. They looked like they belonged to a child. Robert ran to the spot and followed the trail. The footprints led all the way to the banks of the river upstream from Klamath Lake. And then, they just stopped. Nearby, they found a makeshift shelter built out of tree branches. It looked like it could block the snow, but Robert was certain Derek didn't make it. "Some of those branches are way too thick. Derek couldn't have snapped them," he said. When the search dogs were brought over, they didn't pick up Derek's scent. Instead, they started howling as if they were scared of something. And just like that, the trail went cold. Day after day, the chances of finding Derek alive grew smaller and smaller. By the 7th day, the police announced they were ending the official search, saying the blizzard made it too dangerous to continue. But the family wasn't ready to give up. They kept organizing their own search teams. About a month later, someone found a school bookmark in a candy wrapper in the forest. The bookmark was from Derek's school, and there were even traces of blood nearby. But these clues, discovered miles from where he was last seen, didn't lead to anything. Derek's disappearance remains a mystery to this day. The official investigation never found answers, but people haven't stopped speculating. Some think the boy was kidnapped, but no one really knows. In October 1999, a piece of writing was discovered in a restroom at a rural rest stop south of Portland. The contents seemed to reference Derek's case. Early in the investigation, a witness claimed they saw an unidentified man arguing with a young boy on the night Derek went missing. At the time, the witness dismissed it, assuming it was just a father and son having a disagreement. There were also reports of an unidentified man driving a Honda in the forest that day, asking for directions. These suspicious events added weight to the theory that Derek might have been kidnapped. In 2008, A man named Frank Megan was charged with kidnapping and murder in a separate case. Investigators working on Derek's disappearance speculated that Frank might have killed the boy, but without concrete evidence, it remained nothing more than a theory. Another viewpoint argued that Derek couldn't have been abducted. While Frank had a history of targeting young boys, his crimes usually occurred near schools and neighborhoods. Plus, the footprints Robert found indicated Derek was heading up the mountain, a place where Frank would have no reason to be, especially in such cold weather. A second, more eerie theory suggested that Derek's disappearance might involve something not entirely human. Independent investigator David Paul Leeds proposed this idea. According to him, hundreds of people vanish in North American forests every year, most of them children. Paul Leeds pointed out that these cases often happen in the blink of an eye. Children disappear in just minutes, never to be seen again. In Oregon alone, Paul Leeds found over 400 disappearance cases from park records in a single year. He noted, "It's almost unbelievable how many kids go missing in Oregon's wilderness." While authorities explore conventional explanations for Derek's disappearance, some individuals propose a more esoteric theory involving the legendary creature known as Bigfoot. This speculation gained momentum on social media in 2023 when a commenter suggested that Bigfoot might be drawn to children, utilizing objects like sticks or trinkets to entice them before abducting them. This hypothesis was further fueled by an incident in 2022 when a hunter named Brian captured footage of a large humanoid figure ambushing a deer in the Oregon mountains. Brian described the creature as exhibiting cunning hunting strategies, using berries as bait and setting traps. He even discovered a deer with its head violently detached, attributing this gruesome find to the creature's predatory behavior. Regardless of whether Derek's disappearance is attributable to criminal activity, supernatural forces, or an entirely unforeseen circumstance, his case remains one of Oregon's most perplexing unsolved mysteries. His head, it was completely gone, Brian said, pausing as if even he couldn't believe what he was describing. It would take an incredible amount of strength to do something like that. People in the community started connecting Brian's story with what David Paulides had been saying for years. The theory that Derek wasn't lost or attacked by an animal, but rather taken by some unknown creature living deep in the forest. A creature some believe might actually be Bigfoot. When you piece it together, things start to make a disturbing kind of sense. On December 5th, the family was at the site. Derek, being a curious little kid, wandered off just out of his grandfather's sight. Then he spotted footprints in the snow. He thought, those must be Dad's, so he followed them. But what Derek didn't know was that something or someone was already lying in wait. Some believe Bigfoot had left those prints intentionally and even made a snow angel to catch Derek's attention. Then, as soon as he got close enough, he was gone. People have pointed out that there were makeshift shelters built from branches in the area too. Some think that's a sign Bigfoot had been there for a while. Maybe Derek was taken somewhere far from that spot. Now, sure, it's just a theory. It hasn't been officially recognized, and honestly, the authorities lean toward a much sadder explanation. Derek got lost and died from exposure to the expresses a desire for closure, hoping that Derek's disappearance was accidental and painless. He struggles to accept the possibility of foul play and prays that Derek was unaware of his predicament. A frequently cited Minnesota case that some associate with the missing 411 phenomenon is that of Brandon Swanson. On May 14, 2008, just after midnight, 19-year-old Brandon Swanson, a resident of Marshall, Minnesota, was driving home after celebrating the end of the spring semester with friends at the Canby campus. His car veered into a ditch, but he emerged uninjured and used his cell phone to call his parents. Though uncertain of his exact whereabouts, he told them he thought he was close to the town of Lind, and they set out to collect him. Despite their efforts, they could not find him or his vehicle. Swanson remained on the line with his parents until 47 minutes into the call, when he suddenly exclaimed, "Oh shit," and then fell silent. He has not been heard from or seen since. The following morning, his parents reported him missing to law enforcement. Later that day, the case grew even more puzzling when phone records revealed that Brandon had actually been near Porter, about 25 miles away, in a completely different direction from where he thought he was. This new information eventually led investigators to his abandoned car near Taunton, Minnesota. It remains unclear whether Swanson himself was aware of this location error during the call. Police have not dismissed the possibility of foul play. Brandon had left the Canby campus shortly before midnight for the 30-mile drive home. At roughly 2 a.m., he contacted his parents, saying his car had gone off the road into a ditch and he couldn't free it. Unhurt, he asked them to pick him up. They got into their truck and drove to the area they believed he was in, staying on the phone with him despite occasional dropped calls. Brandon remained with his car and tried to get their attention by flashing his headlights, but they saw nothing, and he didn't spot their signals either. Eventually, Brandon decided to abandon the vehicle and walk toward lights he could see in the distance, which made him think he was near Lind, a small town about 7 miles southwest of Marshall. He told his father to drive to a local bar's parking lot and wait for him there. His dad headed in that direction, continuing to talk with Brandon as he drove. Just past 2:30 a.m., about 47 minutes into the call, Brandon abruptly cut himself off with the words, "Oh shit." He said nothing more for the rest of the connection, and after his parents finally hung up, they tried repeatedly to call him back without success. Brandon has never been seen or heard from again. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Department has stated that foul play cannot be ruled out, even though no evidence of it has emerged. One officer speculated that someone could have been lying in wait in the shadows and taken him. The region where Brandon vanished is known for its dense forests and isolated terrain. A particularly baffling detail is that his car was eventually found 25 miles away, in an entirely different direction from where he had believed himself to be. In the summer of 1958, a 10-year-old boy named Bobby Bishop vanished without a trace at a Catholic summer camp in the wilderness. One moment, he was there, fishing by the river. The next, he was gone. Hundreds of people searched for days, but there was nothing, not a single clue. Then, a year later, something chilling happened. Bobby's special hearing aid, his lifeline to the world, was found in a place so impossible, so terrifying, it sent shivers down the spines of those who had searched for him. A place that had already been checked 3 times. So the question is, if Bobby couldn't have put it there, who did, and why? It was a perfect summer that turned into a nightmare. It was the kind of summer kids dream about. Campfires under the stars, ghost stories whispered in the dark, and days filled with adventure. For Bobby Bishop, Camp St. Malo was supposed to be just that, a summer of fun. Bobby was a bright, curious kid, always eager to explore. However, unlike the other boys, he faced one challenge. He was partially deaf. He relied on a special hearing aid, a small device that helped him navigate the world. It was his connection to everything around him, and on the day he disappeared, it was right there with him. That afternoon, Bobby had wandered off to a quiet spot by the river, his fishing line bobbing in the water. The air was warm, the trees swayed in the breeze, and for a moment, everything seemed peaceful. Then a counselor called out to him, "Bobby, time to head back." Bobby reeled in his line, picked up his things, and started walking. He was right behind the counselor, following the trail back to camp, and then he was gone. A search that defied logic began. At first, the camp staff thought maybe he had just lagged behind, perhaps stopped to tie his shoe or got distracted. But minutes passed, then an hour, then nightfall. Panic set in. By morning, the camp was swarming with search teams, counselors, police, volunteers, even the National Guard. Over 400 people scoured the area, calling Bobby's name. They searched the woods, the river, the mountains, every inch of the campgrounds. Nothing. Not a footprint, not a piece of torn clothing, not a single sign that Bobby had ever been there. Days passed. Hope faded. No one could explain it. A 10-year-old boy couldn't just vanish into thin air, but somehow he did. Then, exactly 1 year later, everything changed. A discovery that made no sense. It was an ordinary summer day at Camp Saint. Malo and a group of counselors made their way up the steep mountainside. The area was rocky, treacherous, and difficult to navigate, even for experienced hikers. And then someone stopped. There, lying on the ground, was something small, something metallic catching the sunlight. A hearing aid. Not just any hearing aid, but Bobby Bishop's hearing aid. The exact one he had been wearing the day he disappeared. For a moment, no one spoke. The air around them felt heavier, the silence almost deafening. The realization sank in like a stone. How was this possible? This section of the mountain had been searched multiple times. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Authorities, search teams, and volunteers had combed through that area in the days after Bobby vanished. And yet the hearing aid hadn't been there before. There was no way a 10-year-old boy, especially one with hearing difficulties, could have climbed that high on his own. The terrain was brutal, steep, and filled with loose rocks and thick brush. Even trained searchers struggled to get up there. And yet, here it was. Someone or something had put it there. An unsettling realization. The counselors who made the discovery reported it immediately. When authorities arrived, they were just as baffled. There were no other traces of Bobby. No clothing, no remains. Nothing that suggested he had ever made it up there himself. Just his hearing aid, placed in plain sight, almost as if someone wanted it to be found. The case was reopened, but no new evidence surfaced. No footprints, no DNA, no sign of animal activity. It was as if Bobby had been taken, and this was the only clue left behind. By whom and why? The discovery of Bobby Bishop's hearing aid should have been the breakthrough everyone had been waiting for. But instead, it only deepened the mystery. If Bobby had somehow made it to that treacherous mountainside on his own, why wasn't there any other trace of him? No footprints, no clothing, no remains. Just that one small device sitting in plain sight, as if someone had carefully placed it there. The authorities were baffled. The area had been searched multiple times before, and yet nothing had turned up until now. The camp counselors who found it couldn't shake the eerie feeling that something wasn't right. Some of them had been part of the original search party. They knew that spot had been checked. So how could the hearing aid have just appeared? The case was officially reopened, but with no new evidence and no fresh leads, investigators were left with nothing but speculation. Some believe Bobby had wandered too far, become disoriented, and met a tragic fate somewhere deep in the wilderness. His body never found. Others weren't convinced. How could a 10-year-old boy, partially deaf, have climbed to such an inaccessible place on his own? And if he had, why wasn't there any sign of his remains? Then there were the more unsettling theories. Some speculated he had been abducted, perhaps by someone at the camp or a stranger lurking nearby. But if that were the case, why return only his hearing aid? Was it some kind of cruel message? A clue left behind by the person who took him? And then there were those who believed something even stranger was at play, something beyond human understanding. Could Bobby have been taken by something not of this world? Stories of mysterious disappearances in national parks, of people vanishing without a trace, began to surface. People whispered about forces unknown and the eerie, unexplained cases where individuals simply ceased to exist. Bobby Bishop's case was never solved. His parents passed away without ever knowing what had happened to their son. The camp eventually closed, and the mystery faded into local legend. But to this day, those who hear the story are left with one chilling question. Where did Bobby go? And perhaps even more terrifying, was he ever truly gone? Or is someone or something still out there watching, waiting? Bobby's disappearance remains one of the strangest missing person cases in history. No answers, no explanations, just a single clue found in a place he should have never been able to reach. So what do you think really happened? Was it a tragic accident, a sinister abduction, or something much darker? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you love diving into unsolved mysteries like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more eerie stories. Because the truth is out there, and sometimes it's more terrifying than we can imagine.